Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So, I've talked a lot lately about current events in education and, say, Trump's policies that he either campaigned on or at the least is interested in implementing when he takes office again. There was one aspect of that I didn't quite know how to address in any of those videos, but I know that it's a vital one to discuss since it's such a talking point in education right now: LGBTQIA, specifically that of transgenderism. And it took me a while to collect my thoughts on this because of it not only being a hot button topic, but because I know that I'm probably going to annoy someone no matter what I say. So I settled on the following. First, there are clear concerns to be had when it comes to, say, transgender athletes competing in the gendered sport of what is the opposite sex to their birth gender, ranging from that person having a more natural physical prowess than those they are competing with, to that athlete or classmate using the locker room of what they now identify as. Some schools near me here in California are having a lot of students protesting against this exact thing. Most notably at Martin Luther King High School, where girls wore a t shirt saying to save girls' sports after a transgender athlete supplanted a girl on the varsity team, even though they barely showed it to any practices at all. Oh, yeah, and they were forced to remove those shirts because school officials claimed that it was akin to, quote, wearing a swastika in front of a Jew. And by the way, this was the exact school I was teaching at when we went on COVID lockdowns. And I saw firsthand back then the favoritism that was taking place when a transgender student got into a fight in the quad and received few, if any, repercussions for it because administration wanted to be sensitive to their feelings, even though the student in question had instigated several fights in recent months. So, I think after hearing all that, even the most ardent LGBTQI activists can at least admit that there are conversations that need to be had and ones that aren't really being had. Even under the Biden administration, these concerns were not really hashed out by anyone beyond expanding Title IX to include the discrimination against gender identity and sexual orientation. The Supreme Court actually ruled against Biden's desire to permit biological men and women's bathrooms, locker rooms, and dorms in 10 states where there are already state level and local level rules in place to prevent it. The problem is that the inherent lack of resolution here has led to many people taking a pretty hardline stance on both ends of the political spectrum to protect their children from what they see as a threat, which I think literally anyone would do for their child. You want them to be safe, get a good education, and attain everything they want to while at school. But here's where the muddiness with this conversation begins. That argument cuts both ways. Parents of transgender students shouldn't have to worry about their children being discriminated against or prevented from achieving what they want to in sports or academics either. And you know who is caught in the middle of this debate? Teachers, who, as usual, are the ones who get all the hate for pushing transgenderism onto students when all the vast majority of us are trying to do is a thing called our job, which includes making a welcoming and productive learning environment for everyone, including coaches who run the athletic programs where a lot of this hate is aimed at right now. But here's where my caveats to all these concerns really begin for partly that reason. Transgender students exist. Transgender people exist, and they aren't going anywhere no matter how much anyone tries to put them down or denying their existence by withholding funding for schools that have programs in place for them like Trump wants to do. The first class I student taught in had a transgender student who identified as male. My last year of teaching, I had a transgender student who identified as female. My own father is transgender too and has undergone gender affirmation surgery, so I can kind of speak to this more than a lot of people. And none of this is new for the all the people who've been battling this inside their own minds either. Whether you agree with their pronouns or not is irrelevant. These kids exist in our classrooms, and teachers have to teach them. And respect cuts both ways because it is earned, not given away. Kids are more likely to respect you if you treat them with respect. What many are suggesting is that we make transgender students out to be the enemy and not respect them just because people outside of education are either transphobic or have had bad experiences with people in the LGBTQIA movement. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that they and we need to have a conversation on both sides and come to an understanding of this important point. Schools aren't set up to deal with this and are just doing their very best under very difficult and confusing circumstances. Schools aren't designed to accommodate transgender students by having, say, a third bathroom, third locker room, or third sports team. The US Navy actually ran into this exact problem when they wanted to start allowing women to serve on submarines. But the problem was that they weren't designed for multiple gender berthing and couldn't fix that until they designed an entirely new class of submarine. We have the same problem in schools, and there are indeed functional issues that we haven't solved yet. But no one's morality about trans people supersedes anyone else's. This is a very multifaceted problem, and we aren't dealing with it either way. We barely even acknowledge that there is a problem until so much vitriol is being spewed on both sides that all you end up with is more political fire that serves to divide us. I can be mature and admit I don't really have a straightforward solution to this, but I'm willing to entertain both sides of the problem and admit that everyone has a valid point here. How about we start there and actually try and solve this rather than forcing one group's morality and ideals about someone's identity and sense of self onto other people who aren't going to respond to that very well? When it comes down to it, everyone is human. We all have inalienable natural rights and those given to us by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. It's about time we remember that. Well, guys, that's it for today, though. I want to thank you for listening, and please take a moment to click like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of my content. But until next time, though, I will see you in the next video.